Every year around this time, something changes in my backyard. The weather gets hotter, the days get longer, and almost all at once, it seems like the entire space fills with movement. Birds become more active, butterflies seem to be everywhere, the garden starts going through its summer transformation. And lately, whenever I step outside, there's always something happening. The other day, I walked outside and immediately heard pileated woodpeckers calling. At first, I assumed there was probably one nearby, but as I looked around, more kept appearing. Before long, there were pileated woodpeckers flying all over the yard. Some were calling from the trees, some were chasing each other through the canopy, others were flying directly overhead. I've seen pileated woodpeckers in our yard before, but I've never experienced anything like this. What made it even more special was realizing many of them were fledglings. I've never seen fledgling pileated woodpeckers in the yard before, let alone an entire family group moving through at the same time. At one point, one of the fledglings landed nearby and seemed just as curious about me as I was about it. Between the adults and the young birds, there were probably 6 or 7 woodpeckers altogether. And for several minutes, it felt like the whole yard belonged to them. And they weren't the only young birds around. This time of year always brings a wave of fledgling activity. Young northern cardinals, tufted titmice, and house finches have been showing up throughout the yard, often looking a little awkward as they figure out life outside the nest. The tufted titmice have been especially busy lately. Every time I step outside, it seems like there's another young bird following its parents through the trees, to our bird feeders, and back again. The little cardinals have been making some lively appearances too, chasing each other through the trees and experimenting with different foods. It's always interesting seeing them before they grow into the bright colors most people associate with cardinals. House finches have been raising families around the yard too, and the feeders have been absolutely full of young birds trying to keep up with the adults. Every bird in the yard seems to be at a different stage of their story right now. Some are raising chicks, others are guiding fledglings, and some of those young birds are experiencing their first summer. It's one of the things I enjoy most about this time of year. Everywhere you look, something is growing, changing, or beginning a new chapter. The butterflies add to that feeling too. Lately, I've been seeing monarchs, Gulf fritillaries, or passion butterflies, and giant swallowtails visiting the flowers. One giant swallowtail in particular really stood out to me because it was missing a large portion of its wings. The damage was impossible to miss. And yet, every time I saw it, it was still flying around from flower to flower, feeding and going about its day. Something about that stayed with me just because life often finds a way to keep moving forward, even when things aren't perfect. In a strange way, that same story played out in parts of the garden too. Earlier this year, we experienced a hard freeze that damaged a lot of the plants around the yard. Some recovered fairly quickly, and others took much longer. For a while, I was convinced that my Brazilian spinach wasn't coming back at all. It looked completely gone. But now, it's full, healthy, and growing beautifully again. Every time I harvest from it, I find myself appreciating it a little more because I remember how different it looked just a few months ago. The garden is changing in other ways too. The tomatoes are still producing, but they're beginning to show signs of stress because of the hotter weather. Meanwhile, I replaced many of the other plants that really struggle during Florida summers with crops that actually enjoy the heat. Instead of things like kale and bok choy, one of my green stalks is now filled with sweet potato leaves, amaranth, and Swiss chard. The sweet potatoes have two jobs in the yard this year. The ones in my green stalk are grown for their edible leaves, while the ones in the ground are primarily growing for the potatoes underneath. Some of the summer greens in this planter actually needed some help to get started. It seems a little counterintuitive, but part of the process is thinning out some of the seedlings to give the remaining plants room to grow. My second green stalk is filled with a mix of summer crops too, including peppers and pink-eyed purple hull cowpeas. They really took off, and it's fun seeing a completely different set of plants take over once the weather turns hot. The yard never stays exactly the same for long. Each season brings its own cast of characters, its own challenges and surprises. One of my favorite summer harvests right now is lemon basil. It didn't do well when I tried growing it outside earlier this year, so I've been growing it indoors in one of my hydroponic gardens, and I love using it to make lemon basil lemonade. It's such a simple recipe, but it feels especially refreshing this time of year. I shared the full recipe in the journal section of my website, naturallycourtney.me, if you'd like to make it yourself. As all of this has been unfolding, we've also been getting those familiar afternoon summer rains. The kind that arrive suddenly, soak everything, and leave the entire yard looking refreshed afterward. The flowers seem happier, the garden perks up, and before long, the birds and squirrels are right back to their usual activities. One of my favorite things about this season is how all these little pieces come together at once. The fledglings, the butterflies, the flowers, the vegetables, the summer rain. Nothing is happening in isolation. Everything is connected to the same seasonal shift. A few months from now, many of these scenes will look completely different. Some birds will move on, certain plants will finish their season, new flowers will bloom. The rhythm of the yard will change again. But right now, this is what early summer looks like here. Full of movement, growth, and life. And speaking of life, something really exciting happened while I was editing this video. For the past several weeks, a duck has been nesting beneath the flowers around our mailbox, and my husband and I have been wondering when the eggs might hatch. Well, it finally happened. I walked outside and saw the first duckling nestled sweetly beside its mother. It was such a special moment to experience, especially after following this nest for so long. It's also a pretty fitting reminder of what this season feels like right now. Everywhere I look, something new seems to be starting. Summer constantly shows me that nature isn't something happening somewhere far away. It's happening right here, in our backyards, around our flower beds, in the trees overhead. All you have to do is step outside for a few minutes to realize just how much life is sharing our space. And right now, it feels like there's a little more of it than usual. Take care.